Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. Today we have the awesome Josh Simmons with us. Hi, Josh, how are you?
Hello, Saskia. I'm good.
Thank you so much for coming along today, sharing your story, your views, and your expertise with the listeners. Do you want to tell them a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Sure. So, my name's Josh Simons. I'm CEO of a company called Vinyl Group. We're sort of music portfolio company, if you will. We own lots of music tech brands. We started with a company called Vampr that I started about 10 years ago in America.
Yeah,
And it's like a social network. So it's a place for bass players to meet drummers, graphic designers to find bands, agents to scout new talent, etc., etc.
yeah.
It's like a LinkedIn for the music world.
Oh, that's
So yeah, I mean, it's quite big. So we started that about 10 years ago. And then I sold that to a business called Jaxsta, which is like the IMDb of music. It's an
yeah.
Australian business. That brought me back to Australia, and then that evolved into more of this portfolio business we now call Vinyl Group, which is also home to quite a few other services, including vinyl.com, which is like an online record store, and Serenade, which is music collectibles and stuff for super fans. So we do
That's,
we do a whole range of things.
yeah, it sounds like you've got loads of stuff going on there. So, how did you
Yeah,
get
very
into the
busy.
music industry? How did you get into it?
My family had sort of worked in it forever. So my granddad started, well, he's I think a founding partner of a company called Leeds Music, which was like a very early publishing company in the 1950s, which was later acquired by a film studio and is now Universal Music.
Yeah,
So that was sort of, I suppose, the legacy side. And then my father sort of picked up the torch from there and was a publisher for various people, including Paul McCartney, to
wow.
put the biggest name on the table
Yeah.
for a period of time there. And then unfortunately, both of them passed away when I was very young in the 90s. But I sort of, I suppose, got into my 20s and started playing in bands like a lot of people do, and had some initial success there in Australia and England,
Okay.
and took that about as far as it could go, until it was time to think about earning a bit more money and
Yeah.
crossing over into the business side of things. So which is not uncommon unless you're Justin Bieber or Ariana Grande.
Oh, well, I wish. One day, you never know. Always, I can always pray, can't I? One day, might
We'll
get there.
keep praying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I will do that. And tell us a little bit more about the Australian music industry as well. What's it like over there?
Well, it's interesting because I spent probably equal parts in America, England, and Australia.
Cool.
Um, but Australia is sort of where I went to school, hence my accent. Australia is, I don't know, the country I keep coming back to. But the industry is interesting because it's quite small. It's quite insular, which is good and bad. It sort of everyone knows everyone, which is sometimes a good thing because it helps you get things done.
Yeah.
Um, but the flip side of that is, um, that there can be quite a bit of gatekeeping because it is quite small, and so that makes it quite hard to break into. But I think once you've sort of established your unique little pocket, it's a fun little place to be. The thing that I love about the Australian music industry is we are a small industry, but the output that we create is world renowned. So we've got artists that come out of Australia that people love
Yeah.
in all over the world. It's music's one of our greatest exports. So and London's not a dissimilar type of market,
Yeah.
obviously. So yeah, there's a bit in common there with England. But yeah, it's a like I say, it's an interesting little world.
And you talked about some of the challenges that you face. Like, how did you get into it, and what kind of challenges have you overcome, and what barriers did you face? Obviously, we talked about
Yeah.
some gatekeeping, but what have they been?
Well, when I started, I was in one of those bands that sort of your first single straight out the gate gets on radio, and suddenly every label wants to sign you. And possible, well, in hindsight, made probably quite a poor decision. Had some advice at the time saying, well, if you're getting this amount of hype now, maybe hold off on signing to a major and stay independent, and you can sign a much bigger deal in a couple of years' time. And it just didn't quite go that way. So we
Yeah.
ended up staying mainly independent. I'm just sort of the cliff notes would be we stayed independent,
Yeah.
development deals here and there. But what that meant was I got a taste of dealing with folks on the major side and the major indie side, and then also got that experience of building my own label, my own publishing thing,
Yeah.
and being signed and then not signed and working, with big managers and small managers. I got the full, I think you'd call it, color spectrum of experiences all before I was 25, and
Wow.
that's quite unusual. And it set me up quite well to move into the business because I I think I had a pretty good handle on some of the challenges that artists were facing and the industry more broadly were facing, and a decent, probably, perspective to bring some new ideas to the table as a result, in the
Brilliant.
way that only a young naive person that's had some experiences but not all of them can.
I love. And you've done a lot of international work. And how did you find the international stuff? And obviously traveling, going to different countries. How did you find all that?
Every time I've moved to or worked in a different country has been a product of or a forcing function because of the work I'm doing, which is not the same as a lot of other people I know. They decide I'm going to go and live in Spain for a year, or I'm going to go and you know go to the other side of the world and just give it a crack. It's For me, it was always there was a work project that brought me there in the first instance, and then um, I kind of made it work or didn't um, thereafter. And so that's that took me initially to, well, I was born in England, but it brought me back to England
Yeah.
in my 20s. Um, and I mean, it was some of the best years of my life. I made, lifelong friends and collaborators that I still work with to this very day, and these projects, they work on our stuff, and sometimes we help them out with theirs. Um, and then America was much the same. We went there to launch one of our companies, Vampr, without much of a plan beyond let's just start there and see how it goes. And then 8 years later, and I'm a citizen, and I met my now wife there, and we have property there, and so it's it's funny how life goes like that. But yeah, as I say, work is kind of the thing that's brought me to those various places.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. And what about Vinyl Group? Tell us a little bit more about what that does and how that's
Yeah.
different.
So the purpose for existing, for our company to exist, is to really connect people in that creator economy. And so most companies, if you break down, why do they exist, and you keep pulling back another layer, eventually you'll get to change the world, but you kind of need to go back one step from that, and that's typically a better explanation for why we exist, or why a company would exist, and ours exists to connect people. And so, honing in on our niche, that really means connecting everyone in that music ecosystem. And there's really three major buckets that I see, and we base all of our business models around them. And that's the creator. So that's, the independent musician, or the person creating content on their phone, whatever it is. The rights holder, which is often the creator, but sometimes the rights holder is also a label or a company, um, or an estate, or any number of things. And then you've got the consumer or the fan. And so in order for there to be a vibrant music ecosystem, you need to be pairing
Absolutely.
one of those things with another one of those things. And
Absolutely.
so our purpose is to create products that hopefully do a good job of connecting the dots there in lots of different ways.
Networking is super, super important. How have you found networking in your career and how it's kind of propelled you and helped you along your journey?
Um, you never know who's going to be your boss one day, or who's going to be um, some somewhere slightly more senior. So I've learnt to treat everyone as nicely as you can,
Yeah.
without being walked all over.
Yeah.
And there's a delicate balance there, but
Yeah.
certainly treat everyone with respect. To not be afraid of ambition, and I find typically when you put something out into the universe, you get about as good back as you put out. So when you let the universe know that you're open to collaborations, you'll typically find people who want to collaborate coming back at you. Um, and it's not rocket science, but it does require effort, and that's what we always try to explain to our customers and also our staff. Is it does all of this to be successful in this industry, particularly, does require effort, but you will typically be rewarded maybe not in the way that you think you want to be or would expect to be, but effort is rewarded. So just put in the hard yards and you'll get something back.
That sounds good. For me, I think it's really, really important to connect people with the right people as well, because often you're doing something and you
Yeah.
can't do anything. So for me, for example, I'm very good at creating stuff, but I'm not very good at graphic design and that kind
Okay.
of stuff. Yeah, so it's always really useful. And how do people sign up to Vinyl Group? How much does it cost? Is it free? Tell us a little bit more about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So Vinyl Group as a company isn't a product, but people can sign up to any number of our services. So Vampr is a freemium networking platform. So it's like LinkedIn. You can sign up for free. There's a paid tier, um, $5 a month to get access to some more premium networking features. Um, Jaxsta is the sort of IMDb metadata service for musicians that's got its own pricing system. Um, and then we actually haven't talked at all about the media side, which is we own a lot of music publications. So Rolling Stone Australia is probably our most well known, but lots of different sites that, again, people can check out by just heading to vinyl.group or vinyl.media, and you can check out our portfolio. So every one of those products has different price points and entry points, and plenty of what we do is also offered, as I say, sort of with that freemium model. But yeah, we'd absolutely encourage folks to check out everything that we do.
I'll make
Music lovers will get value out of our products.
Brilliant. I'll make sure I leave all the links in the description below as well, so all the listeners can go and check that out.
Wicked.
What's your thoughts and feelings at the moment around equality, diversity, and inclusion in the music industry? How do you think we're doing?
I think it's gotten a hell of a lot better in the last 10 years. I remember what it was like 10 years ago, and um, there wasn't multiple female CEOs in the major labels around the world, and they're sort of the various territories that we operate with and deal with, and plenty. I mean, even I look at my own leadership team. There's a very, certainly in our company, a quite even mix.
Brilliant.
Um, uh, so I think it's broadly headed in the right direction. I think the thing with that question is always like, could it be better? Well, of course,
Yeah.
as a race, we're always trying to be better, hopefully.
Yeah.
So there's always work you can do, but I always feel encouraged by just you don't have to look back very far to go, oh, we've come actually quite a long way.
I'd like to hear that. Thank you for sharing. And what would you like to see improve in the next couple of years around you?
We invested in an artist about a year ago called Emmanuel Kelly, who
Okay.
is a differently abled artist, and did a tour with Coldplay around that, and he's sort of gone on to do, I think, the Isle of Wight recently,
So,
and and a few other bits and pieces. So we want to do more interesting things like that, where you've got folks from different walks of life that don't look like your typical pop star, but have really interesting stories, and can help unite folks in a way that um, others can't. And so we look to things like that.
it's become very community led, I think, this last couple of years, especially for artists as well. For me, I've done so much in the music industry, but often don't get paid for that. So
Yeah,
at the moment, I'm trying to do my creative projects. So I've just put a GoFundMe up actually, so I can try and get some money for that and support my next musical project, because I think it is about the story, but also what you represent and being innovative and bringing something new to the table.
yeah,
Because I think, there is that massive gap. And being a trans woman in music is extremely difficult. I'm often the only one in the room, and there's not anyone like me around often. So I
yeah,
do find it a bit isolating, but it's starting to improve a lot now. And we're
yeah.
starting to see more representation, more visibility. And I'm hoping that I can get this money together as well. So I can work with some
That's
amazing producers. Because by doing some of these podcasts, I've built meaningful relationships, which is
I
extremely important.
bet.
Yeah. And it's really helped me to meet people all over the world and connect people as well. I think it's been
That's amazing. The thing I've seen that, that's just, I think, so important, and we need to do more of this. And we've certainly looked at putting one together ourselves, is writing camps,
oh, brilliant.
um, because I think writing camps just pull together um, folks from every walk of life. It doesn't matter what your skin color is or your sexual preferences or gender identity is. It's irrelevant. It pulls together folks who have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And I've been a part of some of those that um have some of them have quotas, and quotas can be like controversial topic, and
Hmm.
some aren't, and it's just purely picked on you know talent. But I think either or, they're an opportunity to pull people together that otherwise maybe don't get access to those sorts of opportunities. So I think there's got to be more of that, and certainly we will play a small role in that. But
Yeah.
um, I think that's a huge way to move things forward.
How important has collaboration been for you? Obviously, you've set up quite a few different businesses, you've got a team of people around you, but you couldn't have done that by yourself. So, how important has
Yeah.
collaboration been for you?
It's the most important.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, like you already you nailed it. It's without working with other people, I
Okay.
wouldn't be on the conversation with you. Right? We wouldn't be having a chat.
Exactly.
Um, everything you do in life, but every collaboration that you have, really, I think, is the sort of springboard for the next thing.
Yeah.
I've certainly, um, I don't know if I could say I've structured my life more. When I look back on my life, I've seen that's just how it's been. But one collaboration, successful or not, because success is obviously sort of hard to define, but has typically been the springboard into the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And I come back to that effort point I made earlier. When you're putting effort in, and typically, when you're putting effort in, you are working with someone on something. Yeah, it does seem to open up the door to the next,
It certainly
that
does.
next step.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing. And I also just want to ask you as well, like, what's your thoughts on live at the moment? Because a lot of artists are struggling financially, and obviously touring. There's been impacts on touring. We've got streaming. We've got AI. There's a lot of new things, and things that are obviously a challenge for artists now. What's your thoughts on that, and how could up and coming artists leverage some of that to help them build their fan base?
I So I'll start with the positive, which is that with all the innovations that are happening in music tech, broadly speaking, um, not all of them, of course, but some of them have opened up new revenue streams to artists, which we saw bits of that during COVID, obviously, because folks couldn't tour at all, so they had to find,
Online.
whether it was Patreon or whatever, or they had to find interesting or different ways to keep money coming in. And that probably pushed things forward a little bit, and that momentum I don't think has slowed down. So I think that's the good side. You've got lots of options. The frustrating side is that as an artist, you shouldn't have to spend your time researching all those fucking options.
That's the problem, right? And then uploading everything to each one of these platforms as well.
Well, it's time consuming, and it's like you didn't sign up to be an artist to sort of manage content. So in that way. So I think that there's obviously still quite a few challenges there, and it is a shame because um, in an ideal world, artists should be focused on their craft, which is hopefully writing songs, recording songs, and then performing songs, all three of which are very different skills. Posting to Instagram shouldn't be the thing that determines whether or not you make it. And then trying all these new platforms in addition to that. So it's the challenge of being an artist, but I suppose every industry has its own unique challenges, and this is one of the ones that we struggle with in music.
I think it's kind of made it a little bit harder because everything seems to be a bit more decentralized because everything
Mm-hmm.
used to be centralized in it. So it's become more decentralized, which means more people can get into the music. So it's not just all the different platforms, but there's way more competition, as you
Yeah,
know. So I
and
think it's
and, and it means the pie is being split a lot more ways, and so even as an independent artist 10 years ago or 15 years ago, whenever the hell I was independent, um, there was a bit more money that was there to be made, less people to share it with.
right.
Um, so yeah, there's lots of little unintended consequences of the good sides of the world we live in now, which is that it is easier than ever to make music. Like that should be celebrated and a good thing, that more people can participate in the world of music creation and distribution. The challenge, of course, is quality. So there's a lot of noise out there, and there's probably smarter people than me working on how to address that, and then there's opportunists, sorry, that are seeing
exploiting.
that as a way, well, exploiting the situation to change regulations and rules to get more money for the people who actually don't need any more.
Exactly.
So there's lots of sides to this argument, or this debate rather, and it's actually quite nuanced. You don't want to restrict access, but at the same time, um, you probably don't want to give money to folks who are uploading silent tracks,
Mhm.
and so there's got to be some nuance
That-
there, and some of the onus is on the platforms to innovate, and some of the onus is on the industry to come to common sense solutions, which is an ongoing debate.
Yeah, and do you also think merchandise has become more important now than ever? Because a lot of artists are now going out touring, they're not making as much. They're also having to sell like products to kind of make sure that there isn't a shortfall in the
Yeah,
touring, right?
well, there's a real opportunity with merchandising now because like printing on demand has become a lot more accessible to
Yeah.
literally anyone. um, and you can do smaller runs and not have to like again I can only use myself as an example really, but when I was out there doing it, you'd have to place minimum orders of 300 t-shirts or jumpers, and you have to lug that around with you when you were touring, and then you'd have stock you didn't sell at the end of it, and so merchandise for a small band
Mhm.
wasn't super practical, but now it's you don't have a lot of those issues. So um, that's an example of where technology is really pushing things along, I think, in a helpful way. And the margins there are a lot better than perhaps what they're paying you to play in the room, depending on if you're getting a cut on sales or not. So I think merchandise is more important. One of our businesses, actually, Serenade, which is one of our UK businesses, um, what we're trying to do there is blur the lines between physical merchandise and digital merchandise. So you can go to a show and buy a little mini cassette with the band's image on it, but when you get home, if you tap it against your phone, it'll open up a digital experience on your device. So there's really cool things that companies like us are working on to not only bring new merch experiences to fans, but make those options available to indie artists so that it's not just the big kids and the famous people that get to use those solutions. So
All right. What a
we're
great,
really passionate about that.
yeah, what a great idea. And I think it really personalizes the experience and it gives the fans something personal which they love, you know.
And limited edition and exclusive, which is kind of the number one driver
Yeah.
for the merch.
And I've also noticed vinyl sales are doing really, really well as well at the moment. They've
Yeah.
obviously surged. CD sales have gone down slightly, but at the same time, do you think there's room for vinyls to keep growing as well? They've become more collectible than they used to be.
I think we're on about a 20-year tear at this point. It's been quite the comeback,
Mhm.
and we know that over 50% of people who are buying them don't even own a record player. So it's far less about listening to the music and much more about ownership or a sense of ownership. Supporting the artist is another huge thing. Folks know that they by buying a vinyl record, you're giving much more back to an artist than by listening to their song on streaming, or you can do both. Um, and then there's the artwork element to it. We're aware of lots of folks that are hanging it on walls, and hell, I got plenty of vinyl artwork throughout my house hung up on walls. So I get it. I think that it's been an extraordinary comeback of a format, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that trend endure for some time.
I do remember over COVID, a lot of people were talking about NFTs. I've not really heard much
Yeah.
about them anymore. Do you still think they're valuable? They're current? They're used a lot or not really?
I just think blockchain as a sort of technology is inevitable. It's here.
Yeah.
Um, how how it gets used in the long term in various industries is it's kind of working itself out
Mhm.
in front of our eyes. And there was that sort of NFT craze where things
Yeah.
were being sold for $1 million. Well, that was never sustainable, right? Um, but I've certainly just out of as a sort of technologist, so to speak, followed the various sort of ups and downs of that cycle as the technologies changed and evolved in how people have sort of tried to roll it out. And look, one of our businesses that one we were just talking about, Serenade, there's a part of that that's sort of blockchain based. So, I guess you could say we have some skin in the game.
Yeah.
I just think watch that space. It's not there yet, but it's getting closer.
Is there anything else to look out for, to watch out for technology wise? Because I think that's really, really important. It's forever evolving.
Yeah, well, technology and music are like inextricably linked.
Yes,
You can't have one without the other.
exactly.
Um, and so the big one at the moment is obviously generative AI.
Mhm.
And the big debate is around, who owns, who owns what.
Yeah,
If certain music that's owned by certain other rights holders is used to train a model, should the outputs be, in part, any royalties made from them due to the inputs? There's two camps there. There's those that would say no, because as a songwriter myself, do I have to pay royalties to everyone I've ever listened to train my brain before I go into it? The answer, of course, is no.
yeah.
And then there's the camp that sort of says, well, this is a robot that wouldn't know how to do it if it wasn't trained on the stuff that we spent money developing, and so we want our fair share. I think both arguments have some merit for different reasons.
Yeah.
Um, one thing for sure is that it will get sorted out. Um,
Fingers
the
crossed.
industry, it will. The industry, if it's sort of guilty of anything, is it typically takes a bit too long to sort things out, which is why Napster came along and destroyed things for
Oh,
some
yeah.
time there, because
Yeah.
a stubborn approach to ever to the evolving nature of technology.
Mm.
But maybe we get away with it this cycle and don't destroy the industry.
Well, let's hope so, because we can't live without music. Music is
That's
medicine
right.
to the soul, and I love music.
But that
Um,
very point that you made is why it will be okay,
yeah,
because people
good.
can't live without music. So as long as there's people, there's music.
And what's your thoughts on AI generated, completely AI generated music? What's your thoughts on that? Because I'm not too keen on that one.
I've not heard anything completely AI generated that it's on any of my playlists, but
Mm.
um, as far as using it as a tool, I'm very supportive of it. In the
Yeah,
same way that I'm not very good on Photoshop, but I've been using the fill this blank hole AI button a lot, and
yeah,
it's very bloody helpful. And on the writing side, as I'm sure you do and everyone does, I use GPT and Gemini nearly daily. So I think as an assistant,
yeah.
it's great. And I think I've seen some amazing plugins where you can be looking for like a bass sound, a bass synthesizer, and just type in the type of bass sound that you want, and it comes up with that. Like, that's so cool.
Excellent.
So you're still writing the bass line, you're still performing it, you're still your recording, but it's helping you get the sound that you want. Like, that's where technology can be really fucking awesome. Where it gets a bit bland to me is, like you said, a fully generated song. Maybe one day they'll get good. I don't think we're there at all yet.
A personal feel to it, has it? If a computer writes it
Yeah,
about emotions, generally, songs are generally about experience and emotion. So I do
totally,
think humans are better at doing that than computers.
100%.
Mm. So if people want to find out more about you, your
Yes.
businesses, how could they do that, John?
Probably my website, which is just joshsimons.us. Um, one word,
Okay.
one US.
Okay. Cool. I'll leave all that in the link as well. And is there any major wins and successes you'd like to share with us before we go?
No, I think we've covered plenty of them, and I just feel extremely grateful that I get to work in the industry that I love every day.
Well done. And it's a pleasure to meet you. And I hope to get to see you in London. And please keep me posted on any songwriting camps that you have. 'Cause I'd love.
Absolutely, will do. 100%.
Thank you. Keep up the amazing work and I'll speak soon.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.